Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Directions Mag Geospatial webinar, today sponsored by our friends at ESRI. I am Barbary Duke, Managing Editor here at Directions Magazine, with our assistant webinar producer, Lynette Qualia. We are excited to have Richard Ledbeater and Aaron Rennick from ESRI with us today. We're excited to hear their insights on the redistricting process and how we can improve our workflows.
Thank you, Barbary, and welcome to the audience. Happy Cinco de Mayo. My name is Richard Ledbeater. I'm the State Government Industry Manager for ESRI, and as soon as I get back to my screen, and part of redistricting and elections, of course, is part of my bailiwick, and it's been an interesting last couple of years. Aaron will be assisting me in providing us a demonstration of a solution and a discussion around redistricting and getting it done with the data that's available. A little bit of an agenda today. Be really easy, be kind of fast. We're just going to talk about some solutions, some examples that are out there, and talk about the important public law data that Census is delivering a little bit late for obvious reasons this year. And then, of course, as Barbarine said, we'll have some time for questions. Thanks. And Barbary, I'm not surprised by the local government presence. We talk about redistricting. We see about it in the national news and the local news, and much discussion going about it. And most 90% of the discussion is about federal. And guess what? Redistricting is a state process. Mm-hmm. And once the state does the capital, the congressional districts, and they do their upper and lower house, that data flows down to the local. And typically you have to do your council districts for both the counties, cities, any other special districts that are out there. But ultimately this lands in the election clerk's lap. They have to take these new boundaries and put them together, sew them together, and then compare them to the registration file. So that is actually why redistricting even occurs, is to update your voting records, make sure you're voting for the right people in the right location. And it's often the local government that gets the crunch of all of this. By that, I just want to give everybody a little history. Redistricting, as we know it today, really had the genesis in the 80s. Even though redistricting was done in the past, it was typically at the county levels, very broad brush, as it were. We didn't worry about the balancing of districts like we do today. And all of this was started by the Voting Rights Act in the 1960s. In the 70s, it was recognized that government needed more data. So in the very early 80s, ESRI was brought into a joint effort between the Census Bureau and the U.S. Department of Justice Civil Rights Division to create the data set that could be used to fulfill redistricting to address the Voter Rights Act. So that was in the very early 80s, and the top right shows you the kind of the machine that you had to use to do redistricting, and probably cost you several hundreds of thousands of dollars back in 1980 dollars. That means millions today. Maybe you got one or two scenarios out, but the PL data was available. The Department of Justice was using this PL data. They were using technology to audit local government, state and local government plans. In the 90s, we had workstations. Those of you who remember that workstation, that Sun workstation, it probably cost you $60,000 in 1990 value. Software to put on it probably cost you another 40. If it was even available, you probably had to custom write it. So again, it was a difficult point of entry. 2000 is the epitome of a technology disruptive moment. PCs were available. You could walk into a big box store, buy a PC that was competent enough to do redistricting, and software was available, almost affordable to the public. But you could obtain software, maybe even some open source software, to do districts. And my favorite object lesson from the year 2000 was Loudoun County, Virginia, a second-tier county outside of DC. The state of Virginia had done their federal and state districts, and they passed the data and the PL data down to the local governments. It was a Sunday evening, kind of late. By Tuesday afternoon's board meeting in Loudoun County, they had just under a dozen plans submitted by the public. And that was kind of my aha moment. Yeah, I guess people want to be involved. They want to be able to have an opinion about redistricting. And as I said, it was kind of the opening salvo of me understanding what redistricting should become. In 2010, ESRI responded to kind of that enterprise approach, and we put out the product that you'll see today. And I'd have to say we almost created a consumer level access to redistricting. And I hope you get that feeling from today. Stepping half a decade back, I was asked to speak to the Conference of State Legislature, NCSL, about technology. They had just recovered, and I use that word deliberately, they had just recovered from the 2000, that disruptive moment of the PC. And they wanted to know what technology would bring them for 2010. So they asked me to speak just on technology and where it was going. And that was the drawing I put up on the board back then, that redistricting fundamentally was a PC and a professional, whether that was staff or a consultant, and a legislator. And the public didn't have much of a say. I then drew this drawing because in 2005, the web was there. And if you remember 2005, that was the year Microsoft said, no more hard media. If you want our software, get it off the web. And oh, by the way, we're thinking about a product that you can do all of your Office, all of your email and all of your Word and your spreadsheets through a browser, a la Office 360 today. As a developer, ESRI had to follow suit. And we said the same thing. Okay, no more hard media, get it off the web. And that was the year at the user conference, Jack Dangerman announced, you'll be able to do GIS through a browser, cloud-based GIS. So this was the drawing I drew in 2005. I like to joke that if there had been rocks in the room, they probably would have stoned me. It was kind of upsetting to the professionals. They didn't know how this openness would affect their work. But there was a need. The public did want access to this data. And putting it into the cloud through a browser, you provided a whole bunch of positive IT benefits as well as being able to offer it to the group. So this was a document I wrote 15 years ago in response to those meetings, challenging ESRI internally, challenging us to make that enterprise approach happen. We wanted openness and transparency, and most of all, the ability for citizens to have access into the process. So that was our approach. We announced it as an enterprise approach. And I like to say that we offer this in 3 flavors of vanilla. We do have a single seat, standalone version of it. It is delivered through the browser. And it provides all of the functionality. The only thing it lacks is that public participation, the ability to create plans, share them, have other people work on your plan, copy your plan, create their own plan. That is saved for what I call the enterprise version, both the managed cloud and the on-prem versions. And that, again, includes all of the tools plus the ability to create groups and create public participation with the solution. By way of a drawing, seeing how that draws out, ESRI Redistricting sits within the enterprise, and the user accesses the application, the solution, through a direct, dedicated URL, a trackable URL, because when plans are created, the legislature and the decision makers and the Department of Justice want to know who and what was their intent. And they want to be able to track back how plans were made so that they can understand the logic of the plan. So that is fundamentally our schematic on how it all works and how it fits together. A little bit more detail. Redistricting is just a collection of our software in general, both our redistricting solution, but we provide a headless copy of ArcGIS Enterprise as well. This is what allows you to create unlimited number of users inside the redistricting solution. Whether you have our technology or not, we provide this headless version so you can manage the number of users and that you don't walk on any existing applications or named users that you may have. Purely a technical consideration. We also provide some desktop in case there's a need for additional data work and maybe some cartographic outputs in the end that you may want to do. I like to describe the product with 3 legs of the stool. The data source, of course, that's going to be the PL, the public law data that you get from the Census Bureau. But also the ability to use your data sources or other data sources that may be out there that provide additional context to making a plan, such as major rivers, major cultural features, mountain ranges. These things you don't find inside of the census data, but through this solution, you're able to bring them to bear. You're able to bring in reference files, background files that you can interact with to help build those polygons. Plan management, of course, is critical. By having it through a browser, you have 1 copy of the data, 1 copy of the software, and 1 copy of everybody's plan so that things are accessible. You have the right data, the right plan. It shocked me in 2010 how many times I saw people running around the state midnight on a Friday after somebody had just created edits in one plan, driving it across the state so that it could be put into the main system for a meeting the next Saturday morning at 8 a.m. And guess what? There was a version control problem, the wrong data, the wrong plan, the wrong version of a software that might be out there, and people were having to make that and adjust that. So the whole concept of putting the application into the browser is for that singularity of the data, the plan, and the software. And then unique to this solution is collaboration. This solution offers the ability to provide your constituents full access to the data and the software. The same data, the same software that the legislature or the GIS Commission is using to make their plans. A little bit about census PL data. Fundamentally, it is delivered to you in census blocks. There's only 1 other federal data set that I know that goes down to the block level, and that's the broadband data that's being published by the FCC. But the block is about 400 homes. It's that intimate of a data set. So the block is the fundamental Lego bit that all other pieces of geography are built from. They build block groups, census tracts build counties. And then you have other things like places, urban areas, zip code tabulation areas. School districts are sometimes built off of census geography. So all of this is your long way of saying the census block is your element that you build from. The solution itself has a very intuitive interface. If I had to guess, I'd say 80% of our time in the last 2 years updating this application from 2010 is in the user interface. You'll notice the ribbon, much like the Microsoft paradigm that people are used to using. You work it left to right, top to bottom, and you will have created a competent plan, a plan that meets all of the criteria. And Aaron will be showing you this in a lot more detail, but I just wanted to have you familiarized with the kinds of the menu system out there, but also the data. PL data is not simple in itself. There's 4 different tables you have to bring to bear. And we do that for this application. We process the data into the geographies that are needed for you to understand your local districts, but to build inside the application as well, so that if you're at a scale, you can just work with census tracts. And then as you need to zoom in for more detail, you can work down in the block groups or the blocks, whatever is appropriate for making your plans. I did create a Learn lesson. It's out there. It's very easy to use. It's free to use. It's locked to the state of Maryland just because it was the smallest place I could find with some detail. It takes about 2 hours. As I said, all you need is a web browser to access this Learn lesson. It will be a very good experience on getting your fingers wet on what redistricting is all about. What does it even mean to start creating a plan? What are the kinds of tools that are available in the solution? It's also available for universities, community colleges, even high schools. Government classes have taken this Learn lesson and added a lab so that people are up to date. Government's class is good, but why not teach redistricting in this year? It's a little bit more meaningful. And Utah is my poster child from 2010. When they saw the application back then, they realized it was exactly what they wanted, in that they wanted full public engagement. They wanted it online because they didn't want to have to buy PCs for every library in the state. They wanted it customized. They wanted it to look like Utah is what they wanted. And they wanted to take a very cumbersome process, redistricting, with all of its rules and criteria, and create a workflow that anybody could just pick up. They were a mixed shop in that they had our solution, but they also had Autobound in the back office for more of the detailed work. And then legislators would bring in their own consultants often, and they were able to bring in plans, take plans, and manipulate them with yourself, so they were part of the environment. Some of the benefits was the media within the state loved it. They credited the state with a lot of positive comments about opening up a rather opaque process. And they were able to use this application in all of their public meetings, often starting the dialogue by asking people in the room, did you use the application? Some hands always went up, and they would start the discussion, that citizen engagement discussion, from that person's plan, and get them to speak. Why did they build it this way rather than that way? Utah's, they had well over 1,000 registered user. About 850 were in the solution more than a couple hours. In other words, people serious enough to actually work on plans. And of that, 323 created finished plans, and 271 met all of their constitutional requirements as well. Colorado, this decade, even though they had started the idea of a commission for both the federal and the state districts, they too wanted full access by the citizens. So they were engaging this just like Utah did, in that they want people to be able to sit at their kitchen table and make plans. These are story maps that the state of Montana has done, and yeah, story maps. Yeah, doesn't everybody do those? But the fun part is these were made by lawyers, research staff within the state legislature who'd never worked with GIS before, but had seen a story map template, knew where they could find some geographic data in the state repositories, had all the text and content from their state constitution, and they made these public service, public communication portal story maps with the data. It was very easy for them to use. So I find that a fun thing to showcase. With that, I'm going to transition to Aaron, and let Aaron take it away and provide a demo.
Thanks, Rich. So this is the redistricting homepage. Anytime a user logs into the environment, this is the first screen that they'll see. And multiple things about this homepage are customizable. So users can change the icon, the title, the description, and the background, as long as they have administrative rights to the software. And when a user first comes to this page, they can actually create their own account. And they do that by clicking the Create an Account button. When they do this, they'll provide their first and last name, their email address, they'll generate a username and password, and have instant access to the software. Now, their access level by default is the citizen level role, which is the least privileged role available in the software. And all of the functionality of the software for that role is customizable by the administrator. And I'll show you more of what that environment would look like at the end of this demonstration. For now, since I have credentials, I'll click the Sign into Portal for ArcGIS button and enter those credentials in the resulting window. Once the user logs in, they'll have access to the Open Plan dialog, Now, the first thing that they'll see are their most recent plans they've accessed. They also have access to 2 additional folders. The first is the My Plans folder, which contains any plan that that user has created within the software. And they also have access to this Shared Plans folder. Now, within this Shared Plans folder, there are multiple groups, but everyone will have access to the Everyone folder. And this contains all of the plans shared publicly within this environment. If they're a member of a private group, they can click on that private group, see the plans shared privately with members of that group, and they can also choose to add members to that group. But for now, we'll go ahead and create a new plan. So we can do that by clicking the Create Plan button at the bottom right. Within the New Plan dialog, we can first modify our district caption. So sometimes we're working with precincts or territories. We can make that nomenclature change here, but it does not affect how the software functions. Next, we can modify the number of districts we're working with. So we currently accommodate anywhere between 1 and 2,000 districts, which will be increased in the near future. But for sake of simplicity, we'll stick with 2. We can also modify the maximum deviation of the plan. And then we can select the census year of the data that we'll work with. So we currently provide 2000 and 2010 data. When the 2020 data is released, there'll be a button here to the right that the user can toggle. Once the user selects their census year, they can select their source geography. So they can select from state, county, or city and town level geography. To select the specific geography they want, they'll simply expand the folder and select the state that they're going to work with. Then they can select the data hierarchy. We offer 2 data hierarchies. The first is county, tract, block group, and block level. And the second is county, voter tabulation district, and block level. And ultimately, this will be the geometries we can use to populate our districts. Next, we can modify the district color. So if I think that this color is a little bit too clear for me, I can make it more contrasting by going with the red and continue on to the demographics window. Within this demographics window, I can add demographic variables to my plan session. Now, all of the demographic variables are organized by set first. So if I expand this standard set, I can see the variable name, as well as a brief description of that variable. If I have a variable I like, I can add that individually, or I can add all the variables within the set by clicking this sum tile. Users can also create custom variables. When calculating a custom variable, a variable name, long name, description, and definition is required. So here I'll calculate the deviation of each district as I make an assignment to that district. I'll display 2 significant digits, and then I'll input my expression. By clicking Done, the plan will begin to populate, and the user will also be prompted to save the plan. Once the plan is saved, the user will have access to the user interface. And as Richard mentioned, this is constructed on the Microsoft paradigm. So there are tabs, there is a ribbon, and as long as the user moves top to bottom, left to right through this interface, they will have created a complete and legitimate plan for submission. So the File tab contains everything normally associated with a File tab. We can create a new plan or open a plan. We can save this plan or save it with a different file name. We can archive the plan. We can save a local copy of the plan outside of the redistricting software and bring it back in using the Open Local option. We have our print options, and then we can also import either a fixed text format, so CSV or Excel file, or import using a shapefile. When we use these commands, a new plan will be created with all of the polygons assigned to a specific district. We can export the same, or we can export an image, a KML, or simply the attribute table for the plan. Next, we have the Learn tab. In 2010, ESRI was approached by a number of our users requesting instructor-led training on the software. In response to those requests, we developed this Learn tab and asked those users to work through it. Once they did so, they felt competent in the use of the software, and all of the requests for instructor-led training were withdrawn. Next, we have the View tab. Now, within the View tab, we can modify the number of districts active within the plan. So if I need 10 districts, I can simply click up to 10, or if I need to decrease, I can do the same. Now you'll notice that the attribute table also updates as I make this change. I can display the target values for the plan. So here for a balanced 2-district plan, each district needs just over 2.5 million people within each district. Next, I can modify how the districts are displayed, either as a district out boundary or district fill. I can also choose how the district names will be displayed, either as a district long name, a short name, or I can include the population total for that district as part of its label. I can also swap districts, so if I have District 2 on the northern portion of the state and District 1 on the southern portion, I can swap those numbers without modifying their geometry. Next, we have the Modify Districts window. So here I can change the district number outright, modify its long name, its short name, and even the number of representatives within each district. We can join multiple districts together, and we can create regional plans. Whenever we create a regional plan, specific for like state or county levels where residents may be more familiar with their area but not the overall geography, they can balance just that regional component and then bring their component back into the overall state or county plan. Next, we have the View Regional option. Now, because all of my geometries are unassigned, this would just show me my current zoom extent. It zooms to the largest extent containing all of the unassigned geographies. If I had any geometries assigned to a district, then it would zoom to only those assigned geometries. Next, we have the district window. So currently the attribute table is docked to the bottom of my screen. If I click the district window button, the attribute table opens in a separate window that I can move to a separate monitor. So here I have a larger attribute table to look at, a larger map window to work within, and as soon as I am done with this attribute table window, I can close it and it redocks to the bottom of the screen. Next, we have the Create tab. Similar to the View tab, we can modify some of the inputs we specified when creating the plan. So here, if I decide I don't need the standard data set, and I prefer the OMB data set, I can make that change and the attribute table has already updated. We also have selection methods that allow a user to assign geometries to a district using an expression. This works just as it would in ArcMap or ArcGIS Online. And next we have our more point and click assignment methods. So here all a user has to do is select the district they'd like to work with and their preferred point and click selection method. So we offer a point selection tool, a rectangle selection tool, a polygon, and a polyline selection tool. Next, we have our selection level. So this gold indicator references my zoom extent. So as I zoom out, that'll move to the right. And as I zoom in, it'll move to the left. Now, whenever that indicator passes a magenta bar, we'll see that the source geography has also changed. So now I'm seeing tract level geographies. As I zoom in, I'll begin to see block group, and then further still, we'll see blocks themselves. If a user has a zoom extent that they prefer, but they aren't seeing the geography that they want to work with, they can grab the slider and move it to the opposite side of the gold indicator, and the geography levels will change. Next, we can change our base map. So this works just as it does in ArcGIS Online. If a user wants to see an imagery-based layer, they can click Imagery, Streets, Topographic, and so on. Next, we can apply a theme to a plan. So by default, the universe set and total field will be selected. So if I click this color areas button to disable the area color, we'll see that the centroid of each polygon will populate with the population total. And this will also change as I zoom in or out. If I prefer to see a choropleth overlay, I can enable this color areas option and those colors will populate. Next, we can add content to a plan. So the first thing that we can do is we can orient users to this place. So if I type in Colorado, I can add a flag at the centroid of the state to orient the users to this location. Next, I can search for available ArcGIS online services. So if I search for Colorado Senate, I can see anything that has been tagged in ArcGIS Online as having Colorado Senate data. If I see a layer I like, I can click the information button. I can see who created this layer, a brief description of that layer, and its REST endpoint. If I'd like to add it to the plan, I can click Add. And now that reference service is available to me within the map. I can also bring in services using just their URL. So here I'll go up to the URL option. I'll copy the URL of a known service and search for it within the software. Once we have a reference service, we can use that service to assign blocks to the current district. So I'll go ahead and select District 2. I'll use the identify function, but the first thing I have to do is change my identify from. So here, if I use the identify function, I would only be selecting county boundaries. And so here I'll enable this reference layer to be my identify metric. So if I click within one of these Senate boundaries, I can see all of the attributes of that layer, but I can also use this assign to function to assign all of the blocks within that Senate district to District 2. Now this can take some time because it goes block by block looking for polygons within the reference polygon, and when it finds those, it assigns it to the desired district. What users can also do is search for a place. So if I type in Colorado Springs and click Show, I can then assign all of the blocks within that place to my desired district as well. And again, it can take some time depending on the geometry of that reference file and its size. So what we'll do here is I'll jump to a balanced 2-district plan. So here we can see I have District 1, District 2, my calculated deviation is 0, and my target deviation is also 0, indicating that these plans are balanced. So here we'll jump to the Review tab. Within the Review tab, I can view the plan histogram. This will show me my selected demographic variable and also its total when I hover over each component. In the plan distribution window, again, I can specify my desired demographic variable, but here I see the percent breakdown within the display. We can view the district distribution. So this will show me all of the demographic variables by district. And again, I can view the percent breakdown within the display. Next, we have our compactness tests. Now, all of these tests are approved by the Department of Justice. If a user has a question about how a test is calculated, they can hover over the title of the test and see a brief description. Now, one of these items is not a specific test, and that's the number of holes within a district. We can check the number of holes in this display, or we can run the check integrity test. These integrity tests will validate that all of our geometries are assigned to a single district, that all of the geometries are assigned to a district, and that all of our districts connect. If there's ever a failure, we'll see a red X in the connectivity check, and then we can click the detail button. So here I can see that District 1 has 5 parts. I can click Next Part, and I can begin assigning those geometries to the appropriate district. Oh, my browser is frozen. Let me skip it just ahead because that looked like my browser was having issue processing that command. So what I have here is the Colorado Senate districts. I've brought these in using that initial import functionality in the File tab. And so here we can see the total population within each Senate district. We're still within the Review tab, but now I can run reports on the plan. So the reports that we offer are the Population Summary Report, an All District Summary Report. We can view the voting age population. We can also view the district geography or district statistics. And we can also view all of the unassigned geographies within the plan. We can generate the bill text or meets and bounds for the proposal. We can view the district compactness and assign district splits. Now, if we run any of these, they run in the browser, so they can take between a couple seconds up to a couple minutes, depending on your connection, number of districts, and the size of those geometries. So for the sake of time, I've gone ahead and run 2 of these reports before this demonstration. The first report I ran was the assigned district splits report. We can see the district number at the top, as well as the FIPS code for all of its components. We can also see the demographic variables that I selected whenever I ran the report. Next, we can view the meets and bounds report. So again, this is going to organize all of our districts in order from 1 to whichever final number we have, but it also gives us the meets and bounds description using the TLID of the Tigerline file. The final thing we can do is we can compare plans. So if I open a reference plan that's different than the base plan, it'll show me the differences as a Hatchard overlay. So here I'll make a change to this proposal. I'll just put District 1 where District 8 is. I'll save this as a different file. And then I'll bring in my original plan that I started from. That seems to be hanging as well. Well, I will move right along then. Let me open up a new plan. We'll go back to the Colorado Senate districts. And we'll go to the Share tab. Now, within the Share tab, users can attach files to their proposal. So let's say someone wanted to describe why they're changing the boundary of District 8 from the boundary of District 14. If they had a Word document or a Notepad document that they wanted to attach to their proposal with that explanation, they could attach that here. Now, if they do that, whenever the curator or administrator is reviewing their plan, they can view the map as well as open that reference document to get a better understanding of what the user was trying to accomplish. Next, we have our plan information window. This will contain the plan name, its description, organizational information, and the user also has a field box to input their analysis. I'll go ahead and share this as a template plan. And so I'll put template in the description. Next, users can log comments on each other's plans. When a comment is logged, it'll log the user information, the date and time the comment was made, as well as the comment itself. Next, we have our access log. This will show who accessed the plan, when they accessed the plan, and what they had done with the plan. Next, we have 3 methods for sharing the plan outside of the redistricting software, straight to ArcGIS Online. That's as a plan package, a KML, or as a feature layer. And next, a user can share a plan within the software by using the Share Plan option. Within this dialog, the user can share this with everyone, with specific groups, or any combination of the two. So here, since I'm an administrator, I have access to this RXO template plan group, and this allows me to share template plans using this user account. By clicking OK, this plan will be shared with the citizen level user accounts that I referenced earlier. Next, we can manage groups. Within the Manage Groups dialog, we can add new groups and invite users to that group. When a user receives a group invitation, they can either decline or accept that invitation within this pane. Next, a user could edit their profile. When they edit their profile, they can modify their name, their email address, and update their password, but they are unable to modify their username. The final thing that a user can do is submit a plan. When they click the Submit Plan button, all the integrity tests will run, ensuring that all of the modifications the users made to the plan pass all of the integrity tests. If there is a failure, the software will prevent the user from submitting the plan, but whenever this passes, that plan will automatically be submitted. So as I mentioned before, there are multiple roles and multiple privileges associated with those roles. So what I'll do now is I'll log in as a citizen level user and show you some of the differences between the user experiences. So the first difference is that the Open Plan dialog is inaccessible to this user. Instead, they have these template plans they can choose to start from. So here's the Colorado Senate plan that I shared as a template a few moments ago. When the user selects that and clicks OK, they'll be able to start directly from that template plan. Once they've opened that plan, they can make any changes to it that they'd like, and they can save that as their own. What has also changed is that the File tab no longer allows that user to import a plan based on a shapefile or fixed text format. Within the Create tab, they can't select using an expression, they can't apply a theme to the proposal, and they can't bring any reference services. The Review tab is also simplified, and they can no longer compare plans. And the Share tab is also simplified by removing all of the ability of this user to share a plan directly to ArcGIS Online. Now the Submit tab stays the same, which still allows the user to submit a plan, but this kind of highlights some of the functionalities that can be enabled or disabled by the administrator for various roles available within the software. So that concludes my presentation of the software.
Yeah, we'll jump in. I just wanted to have this slide up for your viewing, but we can start to take questions. In closing, the number one reason we built this was we saw that the redistricting process needed something, and what it needed was an enterprise approach, because you need to be able to provide that openness and transparency. I often joke that you can apply math, you can apply statistics, you can add lawyers to the process. The only thing that really is going to kill a gerrymander is daylight. So it's that process of openness and transparency that to the process that where people will understand what's going on. Redistricting is hard, and just because a line is convoluted doesn't mean it's nefarious. To honor the Civil Rights Act, Section 2 and Section 5, even though they've been their strength has been diminished, you need to be able to support communities of interest, and in order to do that, you have to go out and you have to gerrymander. You have to figure out where those communities are and how do you make them whole. But it's the transparency that provides the process that allows you to do that, allows you to get rid of that specter that surrounds the process and open it up to the public for understanding. With that, we can start taking questions.
Excellent. I think the first question here is for Aaron. Can you export the districts as a feature class or shapefile, and does that use ArcGIS Online credits?
The answer is yes, absolutely. Anything you do in this process, you can save out, both in DOJ formats, but as a GIS professional, you want something usable. Mm-hmm. So you can do this step to shapefiles or feature services, whether they're complete or not, anywhere in the process, just as well as bring them in.
Perfect. So we have a question from Illinois. They say our state statute requires reapportionment must take place by July 1st. Given that the data will not be available until sometime in September, how are you seeing states remedy this dilemma?
Good question. Check with your state. They cannot. Sometimes states are doing a two-step process. They're using the best available data to create or rough out plans, get them approved. And then when the actual data comes out, they're going to have to readjust. So you're going to have to check within your state. That is a consideration. The election clerks, I know, are pulling out their hair in that particular state because of those rules. Most other states have asked their courts for exceptions, but I know Illinois is being tough with the data and the timelines. So check with your Secretary of State, check with your county election clerks.
Perfect. Someone would like to know if they can specify a custom area for your universe rather than state or county, perhaps another custom local government area.
You can. You can gather up multiple counties and then segment them using districts. So the commands are there to do that. You just have to be a little bit more aware of some of the tools that we provide than others. When you do get onto the software, we can show you how that's done.
Perfect.
But I will add that they need to be census based.
Mm-hmm. Next question, does the app handle situations where there are discrepancies between census geography and the ground truthing?
That's a tough one. Mm-hmm. First, I'm hoping that you were very active and aware of the BAS and LUCA and the block boundary suggestion program of the Census Bureau. If you were, no reason to worry. But if there is still discrepancies in the data, that's a problem unto itself. There are ways to work around it. But it is often difficult, and splitting census geography is often difficult in that how you apportion the data that belongs in that block. How do you assign? Is it 50-50? Is it 60-40? Are more people live on 1/10 of the block area? Those are the difficulties in splitting that data. But in general, we out of the box, we ask you to use the census geography as is, but there are some solutions you can ask your account reps on how to gather that.
Perfect. So I think that leads into our next question. If they're able to modify the census block population and polygon data used by the application or substitute their own blocks, they have a couple of district boundaries which they split rather than follow them, and they have proportionally reassigned population values in those cases. It says they try not to, but they are a small city and they are interested in precision.
Yeah, that is the same answer that I just gave. You're going to have to one, check the data, see if you did get that updated through the boundary suggestion program. Mm-hmm. But talk with your account rep when that time comes.
I think this is for Aaron. Which version were you just showing, and what's the difference between ArcGIS Online version versus the Enterprise version and the ArcMap desktop tools?
Yeah, so the version that I was using is actually under the Enterprise umbrella. It's not our SaaS offering or our software as a service offering. And the primary difference there is that in the Enterprise versions, there's a little bit more flexibility that kind of addresses the previous two questions. The Enterprise version allows the user to access the database to make some changes there, where the SaaS offering does not. But the interfaces look predominantly the same. The major difference between Enterprise and SaaS is that the SaaS doesn't have a submit option. That's not really offered to accommodate more citizen engagement, multi-user environment type of usage, where the Enterprise version is. The Enterprise version accommodates basically an unlimited number of users, can be open to the public, where that SaaS offering is purchased by seat. Now, as far as the desktop districting tools go, we're kind of talking apples and oranges a little bit. A lot of the updating that you saw during the presentation, where I'd assign a geometry to a district and the attribute table would automatically update. That's not in the districting option. The compactness tests also aren't as accessible in the districting option. So there are little changes there that make the redistricting offering a little bit more efficient when generating your district boundaries.
Excellent. I think that we covered this. Do you have to have Portal to use it, or can it be run in ArcGIS Online Organization? And what about Pro?
So when I go back to the slide of how the redistricting application is configured, we provide a headless copy, and that's important, a headless copy of Enterprise, which means it's directly assigned to the redistricting application. It's for jurisdictions that may not have ESRI technology at all, but it's also for jurisdictions that have that technology. We don't want to step on it. So it does not use any credits, any existing credits. It does not use any named users that may exist in your organization already. This is independent. So it is complete, but it is segmented because we don't want to consume your credits without you knowing it, and vice versa.
Sure.
And that way we can provide the ability for unlimited number of seats.
That makes good sense. So we've got some folks asking about math and statistics literacy. Seems to be a key component for the correct use of the software. And they were wondering about tutorials to help those in the public who need to be brought up to speed in order to understand how the process works.
No, we leave the process. We leave the process to the process people.
Okay.
We're providing this tool, and then math and the spatial analysis, the statistical analysis. That's a different animal. But we'll leave that to those professionals. I will say that we do have tools like Insight that helps facilitate that kind of investigation of the polygons once you have them.
Great. That's a good suggestion. So we've got someone that's got problems with inaccurate counts and they need to change populations. I think this maybe is related to the other question that we had. Is there ability to change the data within the block? They've got 750 more people per housing unit that they are needing to adjust.
Yeah, wait for the new data to come out, see if that problem still exists. There are a number of states, I think up to 7 states now, that reassign prison populations. So when there's a group home and that is a prison, they will retro assign or apportion those populations back to where their home was. So that is that's what you're talking about. As for if that's not the case, I'm going to advise you to talk to your census rep because, as the courts say, it is what it is. Census data is the gold standard. That is what you're going to use, and you're not going to win your court case if you're not using census data.
Great. We've got someone that says they've logged into their ArcGIS Online account. They are an admin and have creator rights, but they don't see the ESRI Redistricting App icon in the available apps. Is this a fee app like Business Analyst?
Yes, so it is a fee app, and it's not a part of your general account. As I said, we had to build this separately because of the nature of redistricting. So contact your ESRI rep for that clarification, but yes, this is a for-fee app.
All right, and we've got questions about the various levels of the solution, and what those costs and things look like. I know that we'll be in touch with people later on if you want to touch on that, Rich.
Yeah, we will be providing you some links where you can investigate that in more depth. There is the SaaS version, which is meant to replicate a single seat. That's a fixed cost that fits into that range. The enterprise version is priced on the size of your enterprise, of course, and that does provide the public access with unlimited number of seats.
All right. I think that maybe we've got time for one more, Rich. You have one here. I'm not sure that I completely understand that question. Unless something has changed about the blocks being created to match streets. You see that question?
Yeah, well, of course, they're bounded by streets and other physical features that the census uses as part of Tiger. But it's about 400 people in a block, 1,400 to 2,500 for a track, and something in between. There isn't a hard number. It varies considerably. There are many blocks that are blank, that are zero. They're there just to try to balance out areas as well. So they vary widely, but in general, they have some consistency and then grow from there. But they do get into odd shapes to meet all of the legislative and administrative boundaries that are out there.
Excellent. Well, we are really out of time. We hope that you will stop by more webinars, tell a friend about ESRI and Directions Magazine, and we will see you again soon. Thanks, everybody.